My name is Lolo de Puzzlo, and this is Media Delta. Hello! Today is interesting, at least what we are covering is somewhat interesting because today is one of those episodes in which we start our look at a pretty, I don't know if well-known is the right way to phrase it, depending upon what sphere you're in. This is either incredibly well-known or not known at all, because what we are talking about today is almost one of the first televised tokusatsu shows. Actually, especially this is interesting going off of Sukuman Deka, that this is one of like the major franchises that is still going on. And this is probably more of the kaiju scale. Actually, I think this technically might be one of our first kaiju productions, or like things we've looked at as well. Although
it's Ultraman.
Yeah, we're looking at Ultraman. Which, if you're not familiar with what Ultraman is basically a series that started in the late 60s that is about, usually the formula goes, there is a guy that works for some sort of space force or something that deals with looking at, I don't know, like stuff.
Aliens.
The aliens. And usually what happens is there's some mishap that ends up with the person dying, and a creature from another something comes in and is like, oh, I will help you if you help me destroy monsters. And I'm going to borrow your body. And by the way, I will help you fight monsters. And also, I can only be on Earth's atmosphere for 3 minutes because filming monster fights is expensive and can't have you doing it that much. So usually what happens in the show is you get like 90% kind of babble in drama versus like 10% monster fight. But that's in the TV series of Ultramans. What we're taking a look at today is one of the more interesting ventures into the Ultraman franchise, and actually is a pretty interesting like first look at the Ultraman franchise, because that's actually kind of what this intended to be. We are taking a look at Ultraman: The Adventure Begins, which was what kind of was a pilot, but ended up just being a TV or a movie, or like I think it was a TV movie, but eventually got like released on VHS. Kind of almost like a US, like an American version of an OVA. But yeah, this was intended to be a pilot for a TV series that was actually the Subiara studio, which is the people who make Ultraman, collaborating with Hanna-Barbera of all studios, to make what originally was supposed to be a live-action series turned into an animated series, because I don't know why you'd go for live action to Hanna-Barbera, but that's what Subiara intended, and got an animated series instead, or at least what attempted to be an animated series. And this was intended to bring Ultraman to the US. This was before Ultraman Towards the Future tried to bring it, do an actual like TV series towards, or like version of Ultraman that did get a SNES game over here, but is also regarded as one of the worst series in the show. Anyway,
I would like to point out the original Ultraman did get a US dub that was brought over here.
Yes, and I think that was actually right around the time, like that was in the 70s, if I remember correctly.
Yes, because I know this for a fact, because my dad has a VHS with a couple of those episodes literally downstairs I could go and find.
Yeah, and if I remember, because I think I remember watching some of those early dubs, and they were not good. Like, it is Speed Racer level, like, bad.
Oh, they're terrible, but it got the point across.
Yeah. So yeah, we are taking a look at this weird kind of pilot that they just released on VHS because it didn't really go anywhere. Anyway, as you could hear, I am not the only one who watched this, so please introduce the others who watched this with me.
Hi, I'm Axe, and I'm here to die and be resurrected by aliens.
Hi, I'm Carnival, and I've got opinions.
Hi, I'm Dorbatipus, and I'm here to check out Babes at the Beach.
Yes. This is weird. Because also, man, I am looking at. It's also doesn't help. I'm getting somewhat sidetracked by the box art for the VHS tape in Japan, because this, when originally it came out, was meant for a U.S. audience, but because Ultraman got backported in Japan, where it's just called Ultraman USA, and like the USA in it is just the American flag, and it's like it's really good. But yeah, it is. Yeah. This certainly was a thing. So I guess before we kind of go any more into it, let's go ahead and start our little control interviews. Kind of let's figure out what everyone thought about it. And first off, I am going to go ahead and give my thoughts on this because I actually have experience with this thing. I actually rented this back at a Blockbuster, like probably right around this was originally 1987. And I probably would have rented this probably around 80 or 94. I remember it was like my first exposure to Ultraman was from the SNES game, which was based on Towards the Future. And then inevitably led me kind of like, okay, I saw an Ultraman, but actually was a VHS tape for the series that the SNES game was based off of. Never ended up renting it, but I was like, oh, I didn't realize this was a show. We always just thought this was a game. And that actually is what got me into... But the VHS tape that was released over here as Ultraman 2, but was actually a series of episodes from what was an actual TV show in Japan, which I believe is just the Star Ultraman from the 1970s, which was... We might have to do that on another episode, but me watching that inevitably also made me run into this, which was Ultraman: The Adventure Begins. And I watched it, I'm like, this is all right. Like, I remember liking it as a child, but also this was when I was a child, and you like a lot of things when you're a child. So I just I'm like, I'm kind of curious how this holds up, because this isn't, it's an hour and like 10 minutes long, I think. It's essentially 3 episodes kind of strung together into one story. Or you could almost kind of think of it as a 3-parter that you can definitely tell was meant to be an intro for a series. And I was like, you know what, let's start with this in regards to Ultraman. And I was kind of wondering how it would hold up. And much to my surprise, it actually kind of held up pretty well. You kind of see that it's Hanna-Barbera, and you can see it in some aspects. There's, especially when it comes to dialogue or anything that's not the action scenes, you can kind of see a little bit of Hanna-Barbera tendencies, very limited animation when it comes to like talking, just some stilted animation and some really not great animation errors at some point, like some little tiny ones. You can tell it's not like super clean, but for the most part, it actually was pretty well, or like it was a pretty well paced series or like little movie, and it was pretty good. Outside some goofiness when in regards to, as I mentioned, some of the some animation errors when it comes to incidental scenes. The action scenes, this wasn't fully done by Hanna-Barbera. It was done partially by there was no actual animation studio given, but there are some Japanese animators there, which I would assume that maybe Subarara. Yeah, I can never remember how to pronounce that. Might have gotten those together. But Rodri, no, it's actually listed here that Studio Sign and Asi Productions are the animation teams that are behind this. So it's weird. You got some Hanna-Barbera jank, but mixed with some actually decent animation that is pretty held up pretty well. I'm sure we'll go into more deeper discussion when it comes to like characters and all that when we have the interviews with all the other people who watched it, and also once we do our group discussion. But yeah, there's some characters that aren't that great. Like the main characters are kind of like I don't know how to describe them. They're just kind of like military dudes who are like one of them's like cocky, the other's like the sterner of the 3, and then there's Beth, who is just basically the lady, just kind of doesn't do a whole lot other than that. But yeah, characters are kind of all right, or at least when it comes to like the combat. It's also great because you can tell that the Ultraman stuff is. It seems like they were kind of meant for something else because there's like very like little dialogue when it comes to actual fight scenes, which makes the fight scenes actually a little bit better, in my opinion. But yeah, this held up pretty well. It's not the greatest thing I've ever seen, but it actually was better than I was expecting. Now, is this the best Ultraman thing out there? Probably not. But if you kind of want a gist of what kind of expect from an Ultraman, this definitely doesn't do a bad job. And it does kind of make you wonder what could happen if this did actually get picked up. It's actually, or maybe not ironically, but it's oddly enough, very similar to Pirates of Dark Water, where it had some really decent animation and had a story that, were to continue, would be kind of interesting to see where it kind of ended up. But due to circumstances, never ended up happening. I personally am, when I am thinking of my ranking for this, I'm thinking roughly in the 8 to 9 range, which puts it at the solid, or like right in the middle of the good area, maybe middle lower of the what I would consider the good region. So, first up to discuss this, I'm actually going to bring our resident Toku expert, Carnival, to the stage, and let's talk about how Carnival felt about Ultraman: The Adventure Begins. So,
Well, if nothing else, it was better than I expected.
yeah. So, what is your Ultraman experience?
So, of the big three Toku series that Westerners will mostly know, which are Kamen Rider, Super Sentai, and Ultraman, I have the least experience with Ultraman, and that's because in general, Ultraman series, I'm just gonna be an uncertain turns kind of boring. I'm sure someone could convince me and get me a good like when they say this is a good series to start and watch, and I could get into it. But it's just Ultraman has the problem of none of the human side stuff that isn't the fights, just boring as sin, and can't even like just feels like has the worst problems of being a meandering plot that doesn't move the larger story, along with just I don't care. Your gimmicks aren't interesting. You're using the same suits that you use every time. So
Yeah, especially because if I remember correctly, Ultraman, like the first series, just straight up uses the Godzilla suit and just puts a frill on it.
yeah, that's Red King. That's one of the ones that keeps coming back. It's just the Godzilla. It's just a Godzilla suit that's got a frill.
Yeah, and then it's funny, if I remember correctly, during the fight in the original series, they just ripped the frill off at some point. So it's just Ultraman fighting Godzilla.
Yes. Like I have a lot of respect for Sabaria in productions in just they make an effort to go out to the west and other parts of the world, especially currently of like, hey, a lot of their stuff is licensed or you can go to Shout Factory's streaming service, Toku Shouts like Toku Shoutsu, I think is what it's localized for. I'll get the spelling later. Has a bunch of Ultraman shows that they show on repeat. So and also, like I said, I appreciate them at least trying to reach out to the rest of the world, unlike Toei. But God, I just can't get into any of it, and it makes me sad because
So-
it's wild, it's stupid, like silly stuff. But it's just can't get interested in it.
Yeah, I never was able to also, like, there was, when I was younger, I watched, actually, there was I mentioned in my little thing, that I never really got into, like, the show, like, especially the one that I would have had the most exposure to was Towards the Future, because our local Blockbuster had some of the VHSs from it. But also I watched, what came out over here is Ultraman 2, but I believe is it's stylized as The Star Ultraman, which was an anime from the 70s, which was probably not great, but I was a child, so yeah. And then I watched this.
Right.
So, I am kind of in a similar boat where the shows I've not been able to do. I've been interested in some of the other side stuff, but yeah. So with that, what was your kind of impressions from Ultraman: The Adventure Begins?
I again, I had low expectations and this surpassed them and is like, oh, this is pretty solid, but like it's not it's not, the reasons that are it's memorable aren't reasons that make it a good watching experience, if for lack of a better word. Like a lot of it I remember is more of the clash between an anime art style and Hanna-Barbera animation styles. The really good music is definitely the one thing I'll say it's a highlight, but just and more of just, hey, we're doing the hits. Like we're just doing the Ultraman hits, which that's a not fair complaint on my part because I'm someone who is knows of the genre and knows these things. So I guess part of my issue is it doesn't feel it's more notable for the story around how it got made than it is for anything itself does, in my opinion.
All right. So you mentioned a couple of things. What are the main things that stood out for you about this? Like, what are three things you want to bring up? I know you
Animation.
mentioned music.
Well, yes, music is genuinely really good. Since we learned that it was the Legend of the Galactic Heroes guy. Okay, yeah, good pick.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. It's the person who did this. I don't have their name off the top of my or on hand. But actually, it is where'd you go? Shingo Futo seems to be the person who's listed here. Legend of Galactic Heroes would actually, after this, would do the music for Ultraman Towards the Future, which I believe was the next Ultraman series after this, or that when this came out.
Which was a goddamn shame because Ultraman Toward the Future is bad.
Ironically, in Japan, it was referred to as Ultraman Great.
Oh man, just that's a shame. But anyway, yeah, the animation style is just you can see the differences between this is a Japanese studio doing some of the storyboarding and trying to do some of the motions versus Hanna Barbera. And if you know Hanna Barbera, their motto is cheap, fast, and usually really interesting backgrounds. So when you see the certain stuff changes between the two of them, it's jarring to say the least.
Yeah.
I needed one more thing.
Or you could just go with those two if you can't think of
I
another
guess
third.
I guess it also is like the three protagonists at least seem to get equal time to do stuff, which is good.
Yeah, the only thing that I felt like, I think Beth kind of got the shorthand, but also
Well, yeah.
this is unfortunately a male-dominated franchise.
Look, I again, this is better than a lot of modern shows are with this. So it's a like, this is good job on that, but oof, it's still not great.
Yeah. So yeah, with that, what number are you thinking for this?
14, 15.
14, 15?
Yeah, like I said, I found that the story behind its production was more interesting to me than like the actual work itself. It's better than I expected, but what I was expecting was something like in the 18, 19 levels.
All right.
So that's where I stand.
All right. So with that, that was where's my keyboard? There it is. With that, that was Carnival. Now let's move on to someone who does not have much experience at all with Ultraman, and in particular this. So, all right, Axe, what is your? So you did not have. You have pretty much. From what I gathered, you don't have much experience with Ultraman as a whole. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, it's a little redundant, but yes. I've said in the last couple of Toku things that we've done, my stuff is strictly relegated to the Saban mainstream US related stuff. I don't have any knowledge of pretty much anything. I know of it mostly through Carnival, through secondhand, his discussion, or I'm sorry, their discussions of it, in passing. But other than that, this is my first time seeing anything Ultraman from start to finish.
Okay. Yeah, because this did not, like, Ultraman kind of did not come out over here in, like, there were brief periods, like, Ultraman Taiga, one of the series, came out, I think, on Fox Kids in, like, there was, like, a year or two where it came out. So it was very easy to miss. And this is not one that gets a whole lot of, Like Kamen Rider kind of occasionally comes over here more often. You definitely see stuff like through the Power Rangers and all that. This Ultraman usually comes out like I don't think it's ever been altered to something else. This always came out over here as Ultraman. So
because the other Toku properties, a bunch of them get kind of mashed up and cut up into the US versions.
yeah,
Kamen Rider, I also have some passing knowledge of, not much, but I know a couple of people who are very big into Kamen Rider, and I've seen stuff on Twitter. So I had like it's a passing knowledge of.
Yeah.
I know it exists.
yeah, and
But-
especially Ultraman comes from a different like studio owns it. This isn't Toei at all.
Yeah.
So this is really much its own thing.
Mhm.
So in regards to, especially since you are kind of new to Ultraman, what were your thoughts on Ultraman: The Adventure Begins?
So my first thought is on the box art, and I think it's great that they put Stripe from the Gremlins movie on the front cover of this Ultraman property. That's really cool of them.
Yeah,
It looks
Yeah.
like Stripe. That's the first thing. It's like, oh, Gremlins, cool.
it's it's kind of funny because some of the design, like in particular, they're the last monster they fight, which is if the Wikipedia article is to be believed, King Myra, who starts out as like a cute little alien thing, turns into basically a gremlin, and then gradually changes into something that reminds me a lot of the monsters you saw in the Guyver. But yeah, it's that one face does look a lot like a gremlin.
It does, but as far as the actual thoughts on it were, I had positive thoughts on this one. This was a very interesting, even if a bit kind of, I don't want to say camp, but it was silly to some degree. But the production on this is surprising because we've talked about a number of Hanna-Barbera properties, and we even watched before this on Media Delta Pirates of Darkwater, another show that I had high opinions on. And I was struck by how this particular production had the look and feel of both like a Hanna-Barbera production with money and a Hanna-Barbera production that doesn't have money. It had this weird sort of back and forth between really nice, really smooth, and then sort of like, oh, ooh, ah, just sort of. There were scenes that were really good, and then you had, the one we were laughing about, the one guy. So it was a mixture. It was a weird mixture of really good and sort of like, it's like if you play a game that feels like it's trying to be a AAA game, but it's very clearly an indie game. So it's got this weird back and forth between the two visual feels. But despite that, and despite some of the VA kind of not being totally great, I thought it was very enjoyable. It was fun to look at. The monsters were unique, and the story was interesting. Weird, but interesting. It's not I don't think it's the first time we've had a alien revives dead person type story, but I found the concept interesting. But then they gave them, I don't know, they give them the jet fighters. Obviously, because they at the start they're 3 jet fighters, professionals. And they had to give them jets, but at the same time, they're these super-powered alien beings that can just like rip the crap out of everything. Which is also interesting too, because throughout the episode or film or however you want to call it, they're not infallible. They take hit after hit, and knocks on the chin left and right. And they do the kind of tropey thing where, the hero gets the shit kicked out of them, and then there's that big blast of hero strength, and they turn the tables and start whipping the shit out of the bad guy and winning. Which you kind of expect in something like this. It's kind of, standard at this point. But it's not done in a way that feels cheap or too... It's obviously a trope, but it doesn't come off that way, if that makes sense. It's it's enjoyable. It's enjoyable to watch. It was enjoyable to listen to. You know, the music there's some really good music tracks. Did they always fit? I don't know if I could really say they did, but they were still interesting. And I'm using that word a lot, but it's the word I think that best describes, you know, me as a Toku outsider. I would say this is something I would love to watch a whole series of, and it's a shame there's not a full series of it. And if there's other Toku more like this, I think it's definitely going to be like it's going to be the opposite of how I felt about Sukuban Deka, where I wanted to watch more of it. I was entertained. I was engaged with it, and it did stuff that made me want to keep watching.
Okay.
Also, it has Adrienne Barbeau.
Yes, Adrienne Barbeau does a voice she is actually the voice of Beth, one of the three main characters. Actually, the voice acting is a little, like, I wouldn't say weird, but the voice acting, it's a mix of people that you kind of expect and also people that are a little bit more obscure. Kind of actually going for more older voice actors. Like, you have your Charlie Adler. You have Adrienne Barbeau. You have, like Chet Everett, who has done a number of things. You have Michael Lenbeck, who has done a number of things. But yeah, they do a mostly good job, but yeah, there's some
line reads that don't hit, and also the lack of Steve Bloom is. I'm sorry, it's a 19 for me. No, but no, like I said, I enjoyed watching it. I didn't get bored. I didn't start clicking through websites and praying that the episode would end and debating whether I'd keep going or not. You know. And that's what I look for, is just something that can grab my attention and make me at least care a little.
All right. Anything specific? Like, I think you kind of went over a good majority of like what the things you call out, like the music and just some of the acting. Is like one more thing that you can think about, or is that mostly it?
I feel the fight scenes were a little under animated. I don't feel like they really. And I can understand why, because it's animation. Animation's expensive to begin with, but the fight scenes were okay, but they could have been better. Is I guess the way I would put it.
Yeah, and actually, like I got one of the animation studios that did this, Ashi Productions. Kind of looking at the stuff that they've also did. Nothing like super like known for its animation that I can see is called out or like is like sticking out to me. Like I could definitely see some of these are action shows, but nothing like really sticking out to me. In fact, I don't even think a majority of this even came out over here, other than like maybe Macross 7. It looks like there's some Beast Wars in here, Blue Seed, which that
yeah, Blue Seed, jeez, God.
Well, that also was done with Studio IG, so that's not even fully them.
But I find that interesting because if there are more Japan-centric animation studio, having them team up with Hanna-Barbera is, I mean, that's fascinating to me. I'd love to hear the dot connecting going on between those two, because that's a long distance from me in my mind. From, you know, I mean, the company that does the Flintstones comes out and does, you know, gives us Ultraman.
Actually, well, it's not like nothing in this is like super big, but I did actually scroll down to go to their OVA stuff. There was something that did some really early stuff in regards to Violence Jack. Mega Man Upon a Star, which actually we took a look at eons ago.
I was also there on that one, but you did do that one, yeah.
Yeah, they have done stuff, but they're not like, this isn't like studio, like as I said, Production IG or like any of the other major things. So it's, yeah.
Are they still in operation? Or did they go under?
Let's see.
Or get bought out?
I think they're still around.
Oh, that's cool.
After I scrolled down, it actually lists what the stuff they got outsourced to do. Things like Mask and like actually the M.A.C.S.C or K, which is, not known for its good animation. Also, the Mega Man cartoon. So, yeah, things are making sense now. Actually,
Yeah, it's coming. It's all coming together now.
so yeah. Anyway, with all that, what were you thinking number wise of giving this?
I'm looking at an 8 or a 9.
All right, that's not 8 or 9. That is 8 or 9.
I'm trying to fudge my numbers, dude.
Yeah, my numpad doesn't have, well, it does have the little dot, but it's like barely there. So
I know what cons you go to.
yeah.
All
All right.
Yeah, no, it's a solid 8 or a 9.
Okay. Well, I got that down now. So let's go on to our final viewer. All right, Torpo. What did you, Torpo, think of Ultraman: The Adventure Begins? Which actually, before I should say that. So you're not super familiar, like from conversations I've had with you about Ultraman. I don't think you have this series in very high regard. If
I
I'm
think
allowed
it is
to
largely very boring.
Funnily enough, that's exactly what Carnival said. Which, I also agree that my view, like from what I have seen of the TV series, it is very boring.
The suits are neat. They got some good suit design, and the fights aren't bad, but the fights are just a disgustingly small part of it, and that's why it's so frustratingly boring. They have some good properties, though. There have been a couple animes they put out recently, Quadruple S Gridman and Quadruple S Dynazenon, which are fantastic.
That's right. I forgot. Technically, that is Ultraman, isn't it? But yes, for the most part, you are familiar with Ultraman, but not like you probably haven't seen a whole lot of it, other than like you haven't like sat down and watched the series. Is basically kind of what I'm.
Kids, was it that brought over some Ultraman years and years ago?
Yeah, it was Ultraman Taiga was the one.
That's what I have seen in
Yes.
like at most this.
And that's the one that people, from what I recall, actually liked. So
Yeah, that is the largest amount of Ultraman I've been exposed to.
okay. So in that case, what did you think of Ultraman: The Adventure Begins?
It was very confusing, is what I'll say. And to clarify, what I mean by that is it was a show that felt like it was almost at odds with itself. It was split between the groups working on it. And so, like, there were the Hanna-Barbera parts, which were Hanna-Barbera as hell. But then there were also, like, the Tsuburaya parts, which were significantly more Japanese. So you ended up with a show that just felt kind of unsure of what it wanted to be.
So based on the conversation that I actually had with Fax, I actually poked into it because it's listed on the Wikipedia page, and one of the actual animation studios behind this was Ashi Productions, or at least that's what they're going by now. And some things they list are things like, actually looking at it, they did the F-Zero GP Legend, they did the Mega Man cartoon, they did Mask.
Yeah, that checks out.
Which as I kind of looked, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And just a bunch of stuff that looks like it didn't leave Japan, other than like maybe some Beast Wars stuff. And yeah, it's a really disparate style.
It also varies a lot in quality, and it's kind of funny because we learned after like seeing the end credits that most of the storyboarders were Japanese.
Yeah, the more that I'm looking, I think that a good majority of the animation was done either by Ashi Production. There is also a studio sign that is listed, which doesn't actually list whether or not that's a American or if that's a Japanese studio. So I would imagine that it is, I would say, majority Japanese animated with some maybe American assistance.
It's just weird because you can feel the disparity between the sort of anime stylings, as well as the very obvious Hanna-Barbera shit.
Like when anyone talks?
Yes. Because they have the usual cast of Hanna-Barbera voice actors, their usual.
They have some that have done stuff before. It's actually, like, I think the only one that's like, I think it's staple is probably Charlie Adler. Wait, I think which I think Charlie Adler does like a good number. Like, though granted, Charlie Adler does a lot of stuff, so that's probably not saying much.
So, given that the studio worked on Mask, I can see how they got the Hanna-Barbera look down fucking pat.
Yeah.
Because boy howdy, those character designs. Also, the Lady Same Face was pretty noticeable because they had really the same hair and everything. The difference was the eye color and a minor difference, minor difference in
Yeah.
hair color.
God, now that you mention it, I'm trying to look. Actually, I'm kind of curious. If I look up mask cartoon, I need to take a look at some of those character designs because I actually wonder if, like, in comparison, how much they look. Except thanks to it being the year 2020, if I look up mask cartoon, I'm getting a lot of pictures of people in masks.
Hell yeah.
Thank
But
you
yeah.
for making a very easy to search cartoon name. People who came up with mask.
It was a show that. Go ahead.
No, I didn't have anything else to say.
But yeah, it was. I don't know. It was strange. There was also the wildly inconsistent animation quality. Oh lord, it was all over the place. Ranging from like okay to really awful. Like one character at one point is talking and he's just like his outline is vibrating in place.
Yeah. Also, the dude with his eyes going in complete different directions.
Okay, so that's the funny thing. When we were doing the watching, I commented on that. But the problem is, I didn't comment on all of the errors I saw because holy shit, there were a lot of cases like that actually.
Yeah.
I know Carnival kept commenting on how clean it was, but I think that was more due to the specific version you got your hands on.
Yeah, which was just a YouTube. It was probably. I don't even know if this came out on DVD.
Because it seems weirdly up-resed.
Yeah,
I cleaned it up at all for YouTube.
Yeah, I'm looking now at like the faces on the lady. Like, I found a screenshot of Mask, and I'm looking at the.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost identical.
Yep. Nope. They always did that same hairstyle, that same look.
Yeah.
It was also aggressively trying to be American. Oh my lord, was it trying its best to be American?
Like the base in Mount Rushmore.
The base in Mount Rushmore, the constant talking about different states, even though getting there in any reasonable time span would still take incredibly long.
Yeah.
Their constant flying all over the country. These scenic locations, such as New Orleans or New York City or oh fuck, what was it in California?
I forgot what it was in California. San Francisco, if I remember the city.
It wasn't San Fran.
I know there was a ski resort in Utah at some point.
Yeah, it was San something in California. It wasn't San Francisco though.
San Diego.
Yeah. Yep. And it was just it was trying so hard.
Yeah.
And I'd argue probably the worst characters to deal with though was, well, okay, there were a few terrible ones. There was the main character, one of the two guys, who was basically constantly talking about the chicks and hitting on one specific character who hated him until she didn't, because she's apparently very easy. And he's like this Hanna-Barbera classic of weird sleazy dude who always gets away with it. And it was so bizarre because like you could see all the Hanna-Barbera isms despite the animation and the music definitely not being them. And it felt bizarre. It really did. It's like some weird Twilight Zone Hanna-Barbera property. Because you could feel Tsuburaya's influence in trying to pull it a bit away and give it a bit more quality and budget than Hanna-Barbera generally tries to do.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it led to a bunch of really weird and awkward animation, like the really weird proportions on the Ultramen, like one of them having incredibly meaty thighs.
Yes.
And it's like, the action wasn't bad, though they tried really hard to make it seem decent, but man, the wonky animation made it really hard to get into at times. And also, they had sweet fighter jets with sick lasers that ultimately did nothing, and they had to always transform into the Ultraman after getting their shit fucking handed to them. Every time they had to eat it to be able to transform.
Yep. That is an Ultraman staple.
Yep. It's pretty good. But yeah, it's just a lot of that. It's just a lot of isms, and I wouldn't say they don't really hit home terribly hard. And I will say though, I fucking hated the 3 robot characters. They served no purpose. They were very annoying, and they were Hanna-Barbera is fuck.
Hmm.
I could not at all stand them even a little bit, and they were just awful.
So I will say, because it looking at trying to find comparison images, actually brought it up. Apparently, this actually got a Blu-ray release.
Okay, that's
In
what we were watching
Japan.
then. Huh. I
Yeah.
wonder if they swapped out audio tracks then.
I don't know. Well, considering that the entire thing's labeled as Ultraman USA, I would feel that they probably wouldn't want to touch that because I feel like that's probably part of the charm.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I don't know. It wasn't bad for Hanna-Barbera, but like if I have to put that in there, I feel like I'm already bringing it down a few pegs.
Yeah.
It wasn't particularly great. I've seen much better.
All right. Well, I take it you kind of went over most of the things you kind of like thought
There
were
is
notable. Oh, good.
one other notable thing I do want to mention, and the one thing it got really right, which was the soundtrack was fantastic.
Yep.
It was really fucking good, and it's not surprising when we learn that the dude who did the music also worked on Legend of the Galactic Heroes.
Yes.
Because I made a Gundam joke early on because it sounded very Gundam, and when we learned that, it's like, oh yeah, no, this checks out.
It's Gundam and Kinnikuman, of all things.
Well, Legend of the Galactic Heroes, but yeah.
Well, yeah, yes, Legend of the Galactic Heroes and Kinnikuman, yes.
The music though was honestly very good and surprisingly varied too. There was actually not a whole lot of reuse. Like every single fight had a different track, which was astounding to me as someone who's like so acclimated to Hanna-Barbera's cheapness.
Hmm.
And that is the one thing I will take come away from this with is the music was very good. Everything else though ranged from like okay to mediocre to substandard.
Yeah.
I guess that's what I have to say about it.
All right. Well, with that, what is your numbers? Or number or numbers?
It's a good question. I should have come into this with a number. Give me 1 second. I need to be 100% sure because I need to check where one specific thing is, and I think that'll.
I can give it to you. I have it up if you want me to just.
No, I already got it. So let's see. Where would I put it? What is at 10? Yeah, I apologize for not having a number ahead of time.
That's like Wizardry and Scott Pilgrim.
I would put it about on par with Salamander.
Which is at 15?
Yep.
All right. Okay. Well, with that is everyone discussed. So let us bring everyone back together and let's have a group discussion about specific things. Although I feel like we will have probably similar to things to say about certain things. So now that we're all together, let's talk about some of the more specific elements of how we all thought as a group. Thought about things like, say, for example, the storytelling, such as characters, plot, themes, dialogue. From the most part, people, some of the characters weren't that great, but and the plot's kind of a little formulaic.
Aggressively.
I can't get angry. I can't being this too heavily for this because it's like that's nothing unique to this. Is that it's formulaic? That's more of a this is a genre thing. But
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, no, I don't blame it for that, but that doesn't make it okay.
Yeah.
I still say the best character is that guy in the background of that one scene, whereas one eye just goes pointing up and the other eye looks in a different direction.
I mentioned it on my own, but actually there were a shitload more animation errors like that.
Oh yeah, there were.
That was one
There
that
were a lot.
really stuck out in my head when I pointed it out.
That was a pretty glaring one.
Yeah, no, I actually for once I actually caught on to a bunch of them, but I think that's the funniest one. But just like as far as the plot goes, I mean, it was pretty standard, but I still liked it. I enjoyed it for what it was. I mean, I don't feel like they needed to do too much with this particular one, you know?
I mean, you say that, but I still love the plot where there was the group where like maybe y'all shouldn't murder the aliens on sight. And the Ultraman were like, "Oh, but they're evil, and they're attacking us." And then they were proven right when the lady tried to communicate with that one alien, and it went berserk and destroyed most of the city.
Yeah, that actually kind of is usually Ultraman or shows are better about that. Usually it's yeah, no, don't attack don't go for the kill on sight. Actually,
It's
'Cause that's kind of a thing, and especially some of the later Japanese ones are like very much of like, yes, these are existential dangers, but sometimes it's just this is a wild animal that just needs to be taken to its proper home, not oh my god, this is trying to kill us.
it also like there is a very notable one in the first series where there is a monster that essentially, if I remember the plot correctly, it's I think it's Jamira is the name of the monster, which basically it was a Russian cosmonaut that I forgot where he got sent to, but eventually got radiated and came back to Earth and basically turned into a monster and like stomped into the United Nations to tell people, hey, don't don't do that. I forgot exactly what the message was, but they were like, "Oh, this is an actual person." And when they inevitably had to defeat the monster, they actually like I think that was like one of the few monsters they actually had a burial service for.
Okay, but like the whole I hesitate to say this, but I feel like it is kind of accurate. I mean, you're talking about a program that's set in the United States, so I'm not surprised by the shoot first, ask questions later approach to the monsters.
No, you're not wrong. It's just also it's like it's one of those things. It's like, come on.
Well,
Yes,
I'm
the
guessing from
spirit.
like as someone who's obviously been into the franchises, I could see how it might if it's deviating just that much enough from how the other ones handle it. I could see that being sort of a sticking point, like a sore point. But I agree. Like the whole there's a thing, let's go shoot it is kind of like it for these things to be sort of like these aliens that are sort of like I almost feel like they're supposed to almost kind of be sort of superhero-ish type of things, not necessarily policing, but supposedly like trying to keep the peace. I assume is what they try to do, and like just the idea that they don't even think to like try because like the decisions being made aren't by the Ultramen aliens; they're being made by the actual people, right? But I almost feel like if the Ultraman aliens are still within them and still have some sort of like ability to communicate to them, you would think that they would try to communicate that, hey, talk first. If that don't work, shoot it.
So
No,
I'm
they
gonna
sleepy babies.
They sleepy? Okay.
also so I'll give you a bit of context of just so basically the Ultra people are basically galactic cops, just straight up
Okay.
explicitly. They're like, yeah, we have all this power. We just go around the universe, usually to Earth, see stuff that's in danger. We decide to help out. Now, there's a bunch of other side material of just different society that, to the extent that's irrelevant to this discussion here, but it's just now. Granted, yes, I mentioned that there are episodes where they do clearly like, oh, hey, this is a baby monster, and the mom is just freaking out because the child is missing. But most times it's just, oh, that thing's gotta die. That thing is
Well,
about to just.
that was the weird thing too. Is later that it wasn't. I hesitate to say that episode because like the episode was like a bunch of fucking smaller episodes stitched together, and so like they did the baby monster thing, but it's like a completely separate plot line.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if they kind of wanted to do a survey of different styles of episode. Like they had like the one that's a series of monsters working together. Then they had the one that, oh, it's just a monster that we have to go take care of. And the other one, which is oh, hey, this is a monster that originally was started out cute and then turned into something bigger. Because for the most part, that seems to be kind of the types of episodes that you find in Ultraman. Other
Yeah,
than
'cause-
Alien comes in and then becomes the big bad, and then that's it.
Yeah, because because now what I'm remembering of it from yesterday is it did do a bunch of different type of monster stories. It had like the standard, oh, this one's attacking, all right, kill it. And then there was I think it was the second one was like, well, maybe we should stop attacking it because it's cowering and it's not attacking us. And then there was the little guy that they took in, and the lady tried to talk to it. Like there was a number of different stories happening, but I don't feel like it felt too breakneck. It felt like each one came at the right time and then left at the right time.
Well, because they were a bunch of different episodes stitched together.
Hmm.
That's why it's just framed as a movie because it didn't actually go into production.
Which is a shame because, like I said in my portion, I would definitely watch this as a series.
I feel like you could have gotten something interesting out of it. At least, like, especially in comparison to kind of looking like, well, in comparison to say something like Mask or like, I don't know, Cops or like,
God,
Any
fucking
number-
cops.
Any number of Hanna-Barbera action series, this would probably been more interesting and memorable then. Yes.
yeah.
I mean, Mask wasn't Hanna-Barbera.
I mean, well, I was thinking Mask because that's.
Oh,
one
no,
of
no,
the
no, I was
things
saying
that-
the Carnival.
Oh, yeah.
Because, yeah,
What?
no, it was actually one of it was the animation studio that worked on Mask.
Huh.
Yeah. Mask and also some of the early Violence Jack stuff. And also.
Really?
What they did? They did a Violence Jack thing.
What other things we've done?
All-purpose cat girl, or cultural cat girl, Nuku Nuku.
Really? Okay.
They did one of their most recent things was a Cutie Honey.
Mega Man Once Upon a Star.
But Mega Man Once Upon a Star, the Mega Man cartoon. Is that Diabolic? What the hell is this? Oh, it looks like it's something based on an Italian comic. Okay.
Wait, Diabolic with a K?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the movie. That was the last. I think that was the last movie of Mystery Science Theater 3000. That was with I'll come back to it. But yeah, Diabolic. I think that was based off of the comic.
I mean, I imagine if it's being MS3, like if they're getting that, then that probably says something about the quality of that show. I'm just looking at a bunch like a lot of this stuff I've never heard of. New Cutie Honey. I keep on thinking that's Gem, but that's not Gem. That is, no, it's Sentai Filmworks, so it's not porn. Jewel BEM Hunter Lime.
Okay.
Across Dynamite 7.
They get a lot of
Yara.
work.
Yeah. I'm just looking through.
Very diverse amount of work, too.
Yeah.
Going all the way back to the 70s. See, they also worked on Minky Momo. Part of me is wondering if this is the guy who's the director for Minky Momo that said, yeah, this thing is getting too popular. We're going to have her get run over by a truck. And she doesn't get a sketch. She dies.
Old Truck-kun.
This is not Truck-kun who sends you to Magical World. This is the one that just straight up kills your ass.
Yep.
That sends you to one of the heavens.
Nope,
Yes.
Straight to hell.
Yep. Anyway, yeah. So yeah, it seems like for the most part, there's potential, but I don't think they fully got into it. But also, it's a pilot, so that's kind of understandable.
I hated the sidekicks personally.
Yeah, the little robot dudes that were like I wonder if those characters were like made on like you need to have like a mascot character that's consistent because
it's a very Hanna-Barbera decision, honestly.
Yeah, I know it's not Hanna-Barbera, but that's Snarf or that's Orko or that's that thing.
Yeah, it's I have to agree with that. Like, I didn't hate them, but they didn't add anything. They were just there to be, the generic sidekick things that'll say a thing, and maybe one of them's kind of cute, and that's about it. Like, they added nothing, and every scene with them could have been changed with taking them out.
They're constantly bickering, and when they weren't bickering, they were being weirdos.
Yeah, they're acting like that trope of character.
Right.
I wonder what I wonder if that has to be. I wonder what the trope is for that, but
There is, but that's another story to look that up.
Anyway, I think that's good for probably the storytelling part. So this is going to be a mixed one because let's talk about the aesthetic. So the art, music, set, I guess set design, quote unquote. But because that is a mixed bag because on one hand, this is a Hanna-Barbera production, but with multiple studios. So as we actually already mentioned, there's plenty of animation errors in this. So the art is right, like I guess that goes more into the competency thing we'll talk about a little bit later, but like the art itself seemed to be, I think some of the monsters were designed all right. I know Torpo, you mentioned that the proportions seemed to be off.
They were all over the place. The Ultraman in particular were incredibly inconsistent proportionally. Most notably, one of them tended to have like massive thighs and a very, very tiny hips.
Yeah, I think that was the first guy.
Yep.
And it was always when the camera was just sort of looking up at him from the front, and it was kind of doing that sort of almost a Liefeldian sort of stance, and then the thighs are just like huge. Yeah, like I caught on with that too. But like at the same time, I feel like more often than not, the animation and the stuff on screen was okay. There were I just think that the mistakes were more noticeable, but I don't think
Maybe-
they were as prevalent.
Maybe I'm too used to good animation because the animation in this was terrible.
I can see where that comes from, but I think for the part is I've seen much worse.
It was
Yeah.
better than standard Hanna-Barbera fare, but that's also a very low bar to clear. Once
It
again,
is.
there were multiple scenes where like they were talking and it was just their face vibrating in a super weird way.
Like, I'm not saying it's on par with, Redline or Cowboy Bebop, but I think compared to a lot of the other stuff that's come out of Hanna-Barbera, I put it on par with Pirates of Darkwater, honestly. I think they're both very similar. Then I think I would put Pirates a little bit over it, but I still think it was of quality that I didn't expect.
I would
Only put the early episodes of Pirates over it.
Well, I would say that this is probably on par. Like, I would almost say that this is like if we went and watched those last couple episodes of Pirates of Dark Water, I would probably say that it was similar. Like, I think the animation in Dark Water was slightly better, but you'd probably be in the
slightly
same
better
boat.
early on.
Yeah, the early ones were really good, and then you could start to see where it was running out. And I totally agree with that, but I think as a whole product, I think Pirates of Dark Water is still very good, and I think this is pretty close to that in terms of quality. And again, because it's a Hanna-Barbera thing, I'm kind of giving a little bit more credit because it's certainly more than what I was expecting. I'm not going to put it on the upper echelons of animation for sure. No chance of that. But I still think it was competent enough.
Yeah,
That's just me.
One thing I will definitely point out, because I think that was a universal thing, music was great. Like, music was
fantastic.
Oh yeah, it was
Yep.
fantastic.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that's good for the aesthetic part. I think we kind of mentioned performance already, so the voice acting is a little hit or miss.
It's
Yeah.
fucking Hanna-Barbera as fuck, and that's not a
Yep.
good thing.
Yeah, it's way all over the place.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of all meant for that. And then we've kind of gone over the competency of it. There's animation errors all over the place. Use of length of time. Well, are you going to say something?
Oh, I do want to mention also really bad same face, really bad.
Yep.
Yes.
We were talking about it with Torpos, and I actually, in the live recording, I did a comparison of Mask, because especially mentioning the ladies' faces, that there is very similar faces going on. If you like
Face and hair.
It's
yeah,
White Debbie and other White Debbie.
yeah. Like, I had to look really hard to make sure that those weren't the same character. Like, if it weren't for the fact that the hair is slightly different on the second lady, which that's the first one of the two.
Barely.
Like
Yeah.
a lazy pompadour.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was literally. I would have not noticed without like having the image there to look at.
And also, you could almost tell, or like, if it weren't for the fact that the dude was wearing an Evel Knievel ass jacket, you could probably think that, oh, I wonder if actually this is all part of the same show.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's slightly not great. I think the use of the length was like, if anything, it was maybe slightly too compressed. But for the most part, I think the pacing wasn't a problem.
I mean,
Yeah,
as I said, it was very much a handful of episodes stitched together.
I mean, I agree with both. Oh, go
I
ahead.
mean, I have my pacing problems with it, but those are the same pacing problems I have with Ultraman in general.
Yeah.
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 Not really a whole lot of other. So I think that's enough about the competency. Not a whole lot of trivia that we haven't already covered. Other than the fact that I thought it was kind of interesting that Tsubara went to Hanna-Barbera about this. Wanted a live action show at first.
Mm-hmm.
Why you do that for going to Hanna-Barbera? But
Yeah, I think the pair. I mentioned it on my part, but I found the pairing interesting because of all the companies to reach out to, you go to Hanna-Barbera for an Ultraman cartoon.
I wonder if
To be fair, wasn't Hanna-Barbera also the banana splits?
Yeah, I was actually about to ask if they were banana splits.
I believe they are now that I think about it. But when was the banana splits?
It
That's
should be
what I'm looking at.
contemporary.
No, that was 70 to 82. That was way before.
It was Hanna-Barbera, though.
It was Hanna-Barbera. But also, I don't think they did that many live action shows at that point.
Nope.
I think around this, I mean, I guess it's not too surprising because I still think around this time, Hanna-Barbera had a lot of properties cycling around that were still doing well, given that it's Hanna-Barbera stuff.
Oh, actually, hold on. I need to double check to make sure. This is okay. So yeah, this is. It's the thing that I kind of forget about is I wonder, like I wonder if it's just because obviously they're not going to go to Disney, especially around this time
I
because
was gonna say
like
they were
80s
definitely an easy way to penetrate the American market.
Because
Yeah, I
I'm
can
also
see that.
remembering the thing that Japan has a really weird love of wacky races, which is Hanna-Barbera.
Wacky Races is still fun.
It is, but
Stupid,
also
but fun.
it's one of those things that it's like it's more popular than you'd think. But I wonder if that because if you're thinking of like American because what you'd go to there's Hanna-Barbera, Disney's probably out because Disney wasn't doing that kind of thing at the time.
Warner
Disney
Brothers.
was in a tailspin at this point.
Yeah,
Not
Disney
that
was in Tailspin It.
Because maybe Ruby Spears.
Ruby Spears, whoever the people who did He-Man.
There's also Warner Brothers.
I don't know if they were doing
Did they have Looney Tunes going at the
Looney
time?
Tunes would have been done production-wise. They would have just been doing reruns of the.
I
older
think
cartoons.
87. I don't think Warner Brothers would have been doing so. But regardless, I can kind of see if maybe because that they're still doing stuff, but it's definitely a choice.
As I said, it's a way to penetrate the American market.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, putting that connection into that now it makes a lot more sense. The like of wacky racers, as well as looking for a way to get into the market. So yeah, no, that makes more sense now.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Japanese companies are notoriously risk averse.
Yes. Well, with that, I think it is time to actually rank this thing. So we are going to rank this with our normal 1 to 21 scale, with 1 being absolute mastercraft, to 21 being not even that fun, ironically, to watch with some extra ones, which just doesn't count. So I have taken all of your rankings that you gave during the controls. I basically, because turns out this was half-half in regards to placement. So I am going to go and average this for our starting point, which if I'm going to average it, it puts us technically at 11 points or 11.625. So we're going to take a look start out at the we're going to start at 12 and then work our way probably up a little bit. Or we'll see. At 12, we have the live action Street Fighter movie and also the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. So my personal take is, well, that number is a little weird to me. I would definitely feel like I'd watch this over the Turtles movie. But I like the Street Fighter movie, so I'm not going to say anything about that.
Yeah, see, the problem is I like the Street Fighter movie, but there's other things on there that I would rather watch this over.
Yeah, like I love the original Turtles movie, and I enjoyed it rewatching it. And I don't think I watched. No, I did watch that one. And Street Fighter was good for its camp. I don't know if I could say that I would watch Little Nemo over this though. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like
And the problem is, I would watch Appleseed over this though. Like Little Nemo is a weird beast, but I would much rather watch Appleseed.
Yeah.
The problem is, I would also rather watch Go-Go 13 over this.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, if we look at the stuff that's in 11, A Boy Named Charlie Brown, Appleseed, the OVA, and Little Nemo, yeah, kind of thinking about that. Yeah, maybe this would probably be below.
Well, here's something I think I want to throw in just for when we do the re-ranking. I think Little Nemo should be down in the 14s and 15s
So-
in the boring category. That's just where I'm with that.
Part of the issue is that Little Nemo was an old one, like a really old one.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it was
also
18.
B, the fact that Little Nemo looked really good,
Yes.
Yeah.
and it had that going for it. Unlike this,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I find funny because I really didn't mind it.
It's God. Here's the problem is
I
that
fucking
this,
consume a shitload of animation.
this is
Yeah.
Well, it's not like I haven't seen really, really good anime. I don't know. I think it's we all have our own little things where it's like, well, it may not be that great, but I still kind of like it.
it's
And granted, I'm also notorious for my, guess you could say, eye for detail. I notice a lot of little things.
yeah, this is a weird spot because there's a lot of like idiosyncrasy or like there's a lot of like weird cases in here. If I go to 13, see, that's another weird one for me because that's Osamu Dezaki movie, which I
enjoyed Golgo 13.
I did too. God, GamePro TV though. God, I'd almost rather watch this than GamePro though.
Mm-mm. No, GamePro TV was kind of, I don't want to say cringe, but
It's 90s as hell. And
Yeah,
also,
it
yes,
is
you can call it
aggressively
cringe.
90s.
You can call it cringe.
It's looking real crungo, buddy.
I honestly would put it at 12 if I were to make any kind of concession. It would be just put it in 12.
I kind of think we're gonna go in a lot of circles if we don't put it at 12.
Yeah, I'm
That's
gonna play
fine.
my hand here. I said it should have been a 15.
Yeah, same. I was saying 15.
Yeah, so the
Wow.
thing was, me and Axe had the exact same thing of saying 8 to 9. So that's like it's the.
That is
this
not what
is-
I expected. That is totally not what I expected from this.
I thought it was on par with Salamander.
Yeah,
So
same. Like,
Yeah. So I think we're gonna have to put it at 12, or else this is gonna go on
Yeah.
for way too long.
yeah, I'm not in the mood to fight it.
yeah, that's fair.
All right. Okay, so that's 12. Got all that. One thing that actually no one commented on, but I'm definitely going to put on for content. There's a lot of flashing in this.
There is
No,
I got
no, I
a
said
really nasty headache at one point.
I said during the viewing that this had was getting a hard
during the
a hard-
recording.
during
Yeah.
the recording. Right.
During the
Yeah, I
recording.
totally forgot about that. But yeah, holy shit.
Yeah,
I turned away.
It's like it was great because I had it on the others because I was looking at something when a lot of the flashing was going on. So I was looking at something on the other screen and I could see it in the reflection of the thing just going like,
Going
Nuts.
ham.
Oh,
it's like-
God.
yeah, that's a bit much. Other than that, that was pretty
Yeah.
much.
I think I looked away like 3 times because it was actually
Now-
starting to bother me.
It's only during, if I remember correctly, it was only during like the first, like if you're going to divide this into 3 episodes, it was only during the first episode where the flashing got really bad. I think there was some slightly later on, but it is definitely bad early on.
Yeah, it was pretty rough.
So is there anything we want to call out for music, charm, cinema, or what?
Music.
Hold on.
Music.
Music, charm. Hold on. The emoji that it's used. This is throwing me off.
Cinematography.
Yeah. So okay. Music, charm, cinematography, storytelling, action, and art.
It is a bit blobby looking. The video camera or the
Yeah.
movie camera.
Windows. Thank you, Windows 11.
Like Torpid
I
said,
think-
thumbs up on music.
Music. Absolutely.
Yeah, music.
Unquestionably.
Art. I kind of want to give.
Shrug.
Should
Gotta
I give
give
it
it
a
a-
shrug?
You got to give it a shrug because I liked it. Torpid hated it. So it's just right there.
It also is the fact that some of the designs are neat, but there's definitely some problems with the actual like competency of it.
Why did the Ultra Lady, what was it, Ultra Woman, have a pearl necklace?
Right. I actually wanted to bring that up during the viewing. I like that she was the only one with a necklace. And I'm like,
I didn't
It was
notice that.
specifically a pearl necklace at that.
it was. And it had a little like jewel.
See, I didn't even notice that just because that just looked like standard Ultraman design to me, but
Oh,
Yeah,
they
'cause
gave her a freaking pearl necklace.
because Ultraman
Oh yeah, now
design,
now that I'm looking at it, that is absolute like it's
Right?
not like I was expecting like, oh, there's some dots like there, so it's like it kind of resembles. That is a That is a pearl necklace.
It's a full-on pearl. It's a Marge ass. Or no, it's a Lisa ass necklace.
Yeah. Isn't the color timer, I think? No, the color timer's still on the forehead.
Yeah, no, the color timer's on the forehead.
Which is
Yeah.
weird, because usually the color timer's like
On the
solidly.
chest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to call for yay or nay?
I don't know. I feel like yay could be the length because it didn't seem too bad. It seemed to do at least as good as it could with what it had with the time.
Boy, it was the
Possibly.
X's, wasn't it?
I don't know if I'd call it that specifically because I don't know if it's specifically a time bit. I think it's just
the problem is I
Hanna-Barbera.
can't say Hanna-Barbera isms.
Yeah, this is true.
There's your next charm, the Hanna-Barbera ass
That would be so
Hanna-Barbera.
aggressively specific.
I mean,
Just type
you
HB.
could do company signature,
Yeah.
but I have no idea what the emoji for that would be. Is there a quill? I mean, okay, there's the fount. There's this, the nib.
Which you could put under for yay and nay.
Yeah, because both Hanna-Barbera and Ultraman.
Well,
Yeah,
looks
no,
like
no,
they
I
went-
meant in the charm guide
Oh, right, yes.
as a for yay and nay, because it's not necessarily a bad thing, but in this case it is the rougher aspects personified.
Yeah.
There's one of their logos. Just for
let's see. Keep and or oh yeah.
Company standard.
Yeah. I think other than that, I think that's probably good.
Yeah, that's fine for me.
Yeah, same.
All right. Well, with that, that is going to do it for ranking Ultraman: The Adventure Begins. So, Axe, is there anything you want to plug?
Yes, the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network, and also your local SPCA or animal shelter. Please adopt, don't shop.
All right, Carnival.
Your local bail, mutual aid, or abortion fund.
All right, Torpo.
Twitch.tv/torpotypist and at torpotypist on Twitter. And I would like to plug the time I wasted.
All right. So next up, we have probably one of the. I don't know how to feel, but like I want to say that this is like a more not notorious one, but a more well-known one. But I actually don't know how well-known this is. But we are going into another pretty big franchise, although this one is much less known probably over here by its actual name, and it's more as one of the series that got enveloped into the Robotech label.
Oh, that fucking tragedy.
Harmony Gold!
So we are taking a look at the movie Across, Do You Remember Love? Which is I keep on wanting to say notorious, but I don't know how notorious it is. It's a well-known anime movie. But yeah, that is what we'll be doing next time. So thank you all for listening. I hope to see you next time.
Bye.
If you would like to see the list in which we have ranked every single thing we've done for Media Delta, you can go to r3.ldp.life in your browser. If you would like to watch the sister show that determines what could show up on Media Delta, that's Retro Rank Rhapsody, you can watch it live on Twitch at twitch.tv/LoloThePuzzler or on YouTube at youtube.ldp.life. If you would like to discuss this episode with others, please join our Discord server by going to discord.ldp.life in your browser, which should give you a link. Thank you again for listening.